He left me for some random girl he met online, disappeared for 8 years, and now suddenly he's back acting like he's got some life-changing offer that could magically fix everything. I don't know if I should laugh in his face, cry, or just block his number forever. Hi Reddit. I'm a 40-year-old mom with 2 kids, Emily, 17, and Nathan, 12. I never thought I'd be posting here, but honestly, my head is a mess and I need outside opinions. My friends are split, my parents are telling me one thing, his parents are telling me another, and I can't trust myself to think straight anymore. So here's the backstory, because oh boy, it's a long one. 8 years ago, my husband Robert sat me down at our kitchen table and told me he was leaving me. Not, let's separate and try to work things out later. Not, I need space. No. Straight up, I met someone else, and I think I'm in love with her. I thought he was joking. I literally laughed in his face. We'd been married for over a decade at that point. 10 years. We had 2 kids together. He was my best friend, my partner, the guy I grew up with. He knew my coffee order, the way I hated socks on hardwood floors, how I double knot Emily's shoelaces because she always tripped. Who throws away 10 years for some girl on the internet? Apparently, Robert does. He told me her name was Isabella. And then, this is burned into my brain, he called her the hottest girl he'd ever seen. Like, imagine telling your wife of 10 years that you're leaving her for someone hotter. He said they'd been talking online for about 3 months and that he couldn't deny his feelings anymore. My chest felt like it collapsed in on itself. I swear I couldn't even breathe. I remember staring at the little crack in our kitchen tile, the one I always meant to fix, and thinking, this is it. This is where my life falls apart. Looking back, yeah, he'd been acting distant for weeks. Coming home later, glued to his phone, zoning out during dinner. I figured it was stress from work. You don't automatically jump to, oh, he's in love with a stranger on the internet. That thought never even crossed my mind. So I asked him, straight up, are you really leaving me and the kids for this woman? And he nodded. Just nodded. Like it was a business deal, not the destruction of our family. He said he'd been thinking about it for a while. He said he wanted to meet her in person, see if they had a future. And then he had the audacity to promise me he'd still support us financially. As if sending a check could tuck the kids into bed at night. Then he pulled the ultimate cliché, I have to follow my heart. I remember gripping the edge of the table so hard my fingers went numb. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg. I wanted to throw something at him. But when I looked at his face, I knew it was already over. His mind was made up. He packed up his stuff and left the very next week. No dramatic goodbye. No last hug for the kids. Just, gone. Which meant the lovely task of explaining to my children that their father wasn't coming back fell on me. Emily was 9 at the time. She cried and asked 1,000 questions. Did I do something wrong? Did Daddy stop loving me? Where did he go? When will he be back? And I had no answers. Nathan was only 4. He didn't fully understand, but he clung to me like I was the last solid thing in his world. That period of my life was pure hell. My parents wanted me to drag him to court immediately. His parents were devastated, his mom called him nonstop, begging him to come home, and he just fed her the same story he fed me. Isabella was the one, and we were just the past. Weeks turned into months, and months into years. I learned how to be a single mom. I worked 2 jobs sometimes just to keep things afloat. I cried in the shower so the kids wouldn't hear. I figured out how to fix leaky faucets and file taxes and sign permission slips without another adult around. And slowly, somehow, we found a rhythm. Not perfect. Not easy. But ours. Robert? He faded into the background. He sent money occasionally, but he never called. Never visited. He missed birthdays, holidays, everything. He just vanished. And for 8 years, that's how it was. Just me and my kids, making a life out of the ashes he left behind. 8 years. That's how long it had been since Robert walked out and left us behind like we were disposable. By that point, his presence in our lives wasn't even real anymore, it was like a ghost. A name we didn't say out loud. A shadow we pretended didn't exist. Sure, he sent money sometimes. A bank transfer here and there. But money doesn't clap at your kid's recital. Money doesn't sit next to you on the couch when you're sick. Money doesn't kiss scraped knees or tell a bedtime story. And trust me, kids know the difference. I was the one who picked up the slack. I worked until I thought my body would give out, came home, cooked, cleaned, and still had to plaster a smile on my face so my kids wouldn't feel the weight I was carrying. There were nights when I cried so hard my chest hurt, but only after they were asleep, because God forbid they saw me break. Emily grew up fast. She used to ask about her dad a lot in the beginning, every birthday, every Christmas, every time she saw another kid holding their dad's hand. Over time, the questions got quieter, fewer. Like she realized on her own that no answer I gave would bring him back. She trained herself to stop hoping. That broke me more than anything. Nathan, he was too little when Robert left. To him, Dad was practically a stranger. If you asked him who taught him to ride a bike, he'd point at me. If you asked who helped with homework, it was me. If you asked who tucked him in again, me. I wasn't just mom. I was everything. And I hated that. Not because I resented my kids, I'd die for them 1,000 times over. But because one man's selfishness meant they lost something they could never get back, a father who chose them. The only silver lining was Robert's parents. They didn't abandon us. They showed up for school plays, sent money for school supplies, babysat when I had late shifts. They never made excuses for their son, they were just there. Honestly, they felt more like family than Robert ever did after he left. Then came the phone call that turned everything upside down again. Robert's father had passed away. It was sudden. We went to the funeral, because even though Robert was gone, his parents had been a huge part of our lives. Emily wore a black dress she swore made her look grown up, and Nathan stood stiff and quiet through the whole service, like he was holding something in. After the funeral, the family lawyer asked to talk to me privately. That's when he told me Robert's father had left money specifically for the grandkids. Not a massive fortune, but enough to help with college, enough to finally let me breathe a little. When I told Emily and Nathan, their faces lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. Emily hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, whispering, "I don't have to worry about student loans?" Nathan grinned and immediately asked if this meant he could join robotics club next year. I laughed so hard I cried. For the first time in forever, I felt like things were actually looking up. Like maybe, finally, we were catching a break. And then, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I wish I hadn't. I picked up, and the second I heard his voice, my whole body froze. It was Robert. 8 years of silence, and suddenly he was back on the other end of the line. He stumbled through small talk for about 2 minutes before blurting out that he needed to see me. That he had a proposal. He kept saying it like it was some business deal. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. Why now? Why after all this time? He wouldn't stop asking. Practically begging. Against every ounce of my better judgment, I agreed. We set a time to meet at a cafe near my office. I didn't tell the kids. Not yet. I had to know what this was before dragging them into the mess. But let me tell you, the days before that meeting were torture. My head was full of memories I thought I'd buried, the night he walked out, the years of silence, the times Emily cried herself to sleep. I told myself I was stronger now. That I could face him without falling apart. I was wrong. Because when the day came and I saw him walk through that cafe door, my heart almost stopped. When Robert walked into that cafe, I swear for a second my brain didn't even recognize him. He looked older. Tired. Worn down in a way I wasn't used to seeing. His hair was thinner, his face looked heavier, his eyes weren't sharp anymore, they were dull, like someone had dimmed the light inside him. And yet, my body reacted before my mind caught up. My chest tightened, my palms got sweaty, and I hated myself for it. Because even after everything, a part of me still remembered the man he used to be. The man I thought he was. He smiled nervously, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to, and slid into the seat across from me. "You look good," he said. I wanted to roll my eyes so hard they got stuck. Instead, I just sipped my coffee and gave him the kind of fake smile you use on strangers. The first few minutes were unbearable. Awkward small talk, empty comments about how the kids must be so grown up by now, questions about work, about the weather, like we were two co-workers catching up at the water cooler instead of ex-spouses who hadn't spoken in almost a decade. I let him ramble, because I wasn't giving him the satisfaction of making this easy. Finally, he leaned forward, like he'd been working up the courage, and dropped the first bomb, Isabella. He said her name like it tasted bitter now. He told me she wasn't who he thought she was. That she had lied to him. That she had left out some details, like the fact that she was a single mom too, and that she had a gambling problem. According to him, she drained every dime he earned. They fought constantly, but he stayed, because, get this, he didn't want to abandon someone else the way he abandoned me. I nearly choked on my coffee. The audacity. He went on about how miserable he was, how the relationship crumbled, how it wasn't what he imagined. I just sat there staring at him, thinking, and this is supposed to make me feel what? Sympathy? Then he brought up his father. He said his dad's death shook into his core, made him realize how short life really is, made him think about everything he lost. He told me he thought about me and the kids every single day. That regret had eaten him alive. That he wished he could take it all back. I didn't say anything. My face was stone, but inside? Inside I was screaming. Because if he really thought about us every day, then where the hell was he? Why didn't he pick up the phone even once in 8 years? And then came the second bomb. He told me his father left him something, the lake house. Our lake house. The one we used to go to every summer, where Emily learned to swim in a bright yellow vest and Nathan built crooked sandcastles that collapsed in seconds. The house with the creaky screen door and the dock where we used to sit and watch the sunset. That house lived in my bones. And he wanted to sell it. He looked me dead in the eyes and said he wanted to use the money to secure a future for us. That if I took him back, I'd never have to work another day in my life. That Emily and Nathan would have everything they could ever want. That together, we could start fresh, rebuild, live without worry. I just stared at him. Not because I was tempted, but because I was trying to process the sheer insanity of what he was saying. This man left me to raise 2 kids alone for 8 years. He missed birthdays, holidays, graduations, tears, laughs, milestones, everything. And now he thought he could just waltz back in, wave some money around, and buy his way back into our lives? I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just told him I needed time to think. Not because I was considering it, but because I wanted to go home, breathe, and figure out how to tell him the truth without flipping the damn table in that cafe. And as I walked out, one thought burned hotter than all the others. This wasn't about love. This was about control. When I finally opened my mouth to answer him, my voice was steadier than I expected. Inside, my stomach was twisting, but outside, I kept it calm. I can't do this, Robert, I told him flat out. His face twitched, like I just slapped him. He leaned forward, desperation written all over him. Please, just think about it. Don't say no right away. I'm offering you and the kids a life you deserve. No more stress, no more late nights at work, no more scraping by. We could have it all again. I shook my head slowly. You don't get it. We already have a life. Maybe it's not glamorous, maybe I'm exhausted half the time, maybe the kids don't get everything they want right when they want it, but it's real. And it's stable. And you weren't there to build it with us. His eyes glossed over. He actually looked hurt. And for a split second, the old me almost softened. But then I remembered every birthday I decorated alone, every time I held Emily when she cried about her dad, every single time Nathan asked why he didn't have memories with his father like his friends did. 8 years, I whispered. 8 years, Robert. Do you have any idea how long that is in a child's life? Do you have any idea what you missed? He started crying. I swear, actual tears. He said, I know, I messed up so badly. But I'm here now. I'm trying. Doesn't that count for something? No, I said. It doesn't erase what you did. You don't get to vanish for nearly a decade and then buy your way back in with promises and inheritance money. He begged me again. Over and over. Said he couldn't live without us, said this was his one chance to make things right. But the more he pushed, the colder I felt. By the time I left the cafe, I had made up my mind, I wasn't letting him back in. But then, the pressure started. My parents, who have always had my back, suddenly shifted. When I told them about Robert's offer, they told me to at least think about it. My mom said, honey, he could give those kids a future you can't. College, security, stability. Isn't that worth something? I wanted to scream. Because hadn't I already given my kids stability? Hadn't I worked myself to the bone to make sure they never went without? Robert's parents too, they started calling me, pleading. His mom said, he's changed. He regrets everything. Please, give him a chance. Even after all the help they'd given me over the years, I couldn't believe they were now standing on his side. The whispers got louder. People change. Don't be stubborn. At least consider it for the kids. And suddenly I was the bad guy. The selfish one. The woman too bitter to forgive, too proud to take the hand being offered. But every time I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, I kept coming back to the same memory, that moment in the living room when Emily asked me why Daddy left and Nathan sat there, confused, clutching his toy car. I had to tell them the truth. I had to explain their father wasn't coming back. I can't go through that again. And I sure as hell won't put my kids through it again. So Reddit, I told him no. I told my family no. But now I'm drowning in guilt, wondering if I just destroyed my kid's shot at a better life. The internet can be a brutal place, but when I shared my story on Reddit, the response was overwhelming. Thousands of strangers chimed in, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel so alone. People told me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't selfish, that protecting my kids was the right thing. Some even shared their own childhoods with absent fathers, and how the return years later only reopened old wounds. Reading those comments, I cried. Not sad tears, more like relief. Like maybe I wasn't failing my children after all. Like maybe my instincts weren't just fueled by bitterness, but by love. So I made a decision. It was time to talk to Emily and Nathan. They deserved to hear it from me, not to be blindsided if Robert showed up out of nowhere. That night, after dinner, I sat them both down at the kitchen table. My hands were shaking as I reached for the words. Kids, I started, there's something I need to tell you. Your dad, he called me. Emily's fork clattered against her plate. Her eyes went wide, and I could almost see the storm of emotions running across her face, shock, curiosity, fear, even anger. Nathan just blinked at me, confused. I told them everything. How Robert had come back into the picture, how he had an offer, how he suddenly wanted to be a family again. I left nothing out. I wanted them to hear the whole truth, no matter how messy. When I mentioned the inheritance, the lake house their grandfather left him, Emily's jaw clenched. So that's why, she spat. It's not about us. It's about money. Nathan, sweet innocent Nathan, just looked lost. I don't remember him, he said quietly. So, why does it matter? Emily, though, she let it all out. She told me she remembered him walking out, she remembered the tears, the way kids at school bragged about their dads being at soccer games while hers wasn't around. She said she'd cried herself to sleep for weeks back then, and now he thought he could just waltz back in with a fancy house and erase all that? Her voice cracked as she said, "I don't want him back, Mom. I don't care if he's rich now. I don't care if he promises us the world. I don't trust him, and I don't want to start over with someone who abandoned us." Nathan nodded slowly. "If Emily doesn't want him back, I don't either. I like the way things are now. We're fine, Mom. We don't need him." In that moment, I felt both heartbroken and proud. Heartbroken because my children had been scarred so deeply, and proud because they saw through his lies even clearer than I did. I hugged them both tight, tears running down my face, and promised them I wouldn't let Robert disrupt our lives again. But I thought that was the end of it. I thought we could finally move on. Turns out, the story wasn't nearly finished. A few days later, I got a call from Robert's family lawyer. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. He cleared his throat and said, "There's something about the will you need to know." My stomach dropped. I braced myself. Apparently, Robert's father had left a clause in his will. A sneaky, manipulative clause that tied everything together. The lake house Robert inherited? He only got full ownership if he returned to his family. To me and the kids. And to make it official, I had to sign off on some paperwork confirming we were back together. I sat there, stunned, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. So all of this Robert's sudden phone calls, his tears, his grand speeches about second chances, it wasn't about love or regret. It was about securing that damn house. The lawyer probably heard the silence on my end, because he said gently, "I just thought you should know." When I hung up, I felt sick. My entire body buzzed with this mix of rage and disgust. It all made sense now, why he suddenly cared, why he was pushing so hard. It wasn't about Emily. It wasn't about Nathan. And it sure as hell wasn't about me. It was about a piece of property. About money. About his comfort. I realized then that Robert hadn't changed at all. Not one bit. He was the same selfish man who had walked out on us 8 years ago, only now he was using us as leverage. For a moment, I thought about calling him and unleashing everything, every insult, every ounce of anger I had bottled up. But instead, I sat quietly at the kitchen table, staring at the old photo of our family on the fridge. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want his money. I just wanted peace. So I made another decision. It was time to end this story for good. No more what ifs. No more open doors. I called an attorney of my own. "Hi," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I want to file for divorce. Officially." And for the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control back. When I told my parents what I had learned about the will, their faces went pale. My mom covered her mouth with her hand like she was about to be sick, and my dad muttered, "That manipulative bastard," under his breath. They both admitted they regretted ever suggesting I should consider Robert's offer. At first, they had thought maybe he'd changed, maybe he wanted to make amends. But once the truth came out, even they saw it clearly, Robert hadn't returned for love or family. He'd returned for profit. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the weight of it all pressing on my chest. Every memory from the last 8 years came flooding back, raising 2 kids alone, juggling 2 jobs, crying myself to sleep more nights than I'd like to admit. And meanwhile, Robert had been off playing house with some online fling, spending money he didn't earn, and now crawling back just to claim his prize. I realized something very important. I wasn't angry just for me. I was angry for Emily and Nathan. Because if I let Robert manipulate us now, he'd only hurt them again. And I couldn't let that happen. So I followed through. I met with my lawyer, gathered the documents, and began the process of divorce. After years of living in limbo, I was finally ready to shut that door permanently. When I blocked Robert's number, it felt almost symbolic, like cutting the last cord tying me to his chaos. But part of me knew it wasn't over yet. He wasn't going to walk away quietly. Not Robert. And I was right. A week later, he somehow got through to me again and emailed this time. He begged me to meet him, said we needed to talk face to face. I didn't reply. But deep down, I knew I would have to see him one last time. Not for his sake, but for mine. For closure. And, honestly, for the kids. Because Emily and Nathan had questions, 2 questions only their father could answer. We agreed to meet in a public place, a park not far from where we used to spend family afternoons before everything fell apart. It felt almost cruel, the way nostalgia hit me as soon as I stepped onto that grass. Emily walked beside me, stiff as a board, her face locked in a mask of anger and curiosity. Nathan shuffled next to me, quieter, but his small hand kept tightening around mine. Robert was already there, sitting on a bench like he owned the place. When he saw us, he stood up too quickly, like a kid caught doing something wrong. His eyes darted between Emily and Nathan, and I could see the weight of their absence hitting him in real time. I didn't waste any time. "Robert," I said sharply, "we know about the will. We know why you're here." His jaw tightened, and he tried to argue. "It's not just about that clause." "Yes, it's part of it, but I want to fix things." I want a second chance with my family. Emily laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laugh you want to hear from your child. It was bitter, cutting. So you walked out on us for some random woman, ignored us for 8 years, and now you think you get to waltz back because Grandpa left you a house? Robert winced. His lips trembled, and for a moment I thought he might cry. I made a mistake. The worst mistake of my life. I regret it every single day. Nathan, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke up. So was she worth it? Was leaving us worth it? That question, it landed like a punch to the gut. Robert's shoulders sagged. No, he whispered. It wasn't. I was selfish. I was lost. And I hurt you more than anyone deserves to be hurt. But my kids weren't ready to hand him forgiveness. Emily's eyes burned with tears as she said, "You weren't there when I needed you. You weren't there for birthdays, graduations, or when Mom worked herself sick just to keep us afloat. You can't erase that. You don't just get to show up and pretend it didn't happen." Nathan added quietly, "I don't even remember you." I watched Robert crumble under the weight of their words, but I stayed silent. This wasn't my fight, it was theirs. And they were finally getting to speak their truth. He begged us again. Promised money, security, comfort. Promised that we'd never have to struggle again. But the more he talked, the more obvious it became, he thought money could patch up the years he threw away. And that was the moment I knew. There was no going back. I took a deep breath, reached into my bag, and pulled out the manila envelope my lawyer had given me. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out steady. "Robert," I said, holding the envelope out toward him, "this is the end. These are the divorce papers. I need you to sign them." For a second, he just stared at it like it was a bomb about to go off. His face went pale, and his lips parted like he wanted to argue, but no words came. Emily folded her arms, glaring at him, and Nathan leaned against my side, watching silently. Finally, Robert muttered, "Please, don't do this. I know I've been a terrible husband, a terrible father, but I can change. Let me prove it. Let me make it right." I shook my head. "You had 8 years to prove it. 8 years of silence, of absence, of me raising these kids on my own. You don't get another chance. Not now. Not ever." His eyes filled with tears, and he dropped down onto the bench, burying his face in his hands. "I ruined everything," he whispered. "I ruined my family." Emily's voice cut through the air, sharp and clear. "You didn't ruin it, Dad. Mom built us back up without you. We're stronger without you." Robert looked at her like she'd just stabbed him. And in a way, maybe she had. But it was the truth, and he needed to hear it. He tried one last time, offering money again, saying he'd split the profits from selling the lake house, saying we'd never have to worry about bills again. But Emily shut him down instantly. "We don't want your money. We don't want you. We're fine without both." Nathan nodded, finally speaking up in a small but firm voice, "We're happy the way we are." And that was it. That was the nail in the coffin. I placed the envelope on the bench beside him. "This is your mess to deal with now. Sign the papers. Make it official. And then leave us alone." Robert sat there frozen, tears dripping down his face, while the three of us turned and walked away. I held my kids' hands, one on each side, and for the first time in years, I felt free. As we walked out of that park, the three of us hand in hand, I swear I felt something lift off my shoulders, a weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying all these years. Robert sat on that bench with the papers, crying, but I didn't look back. Not once. For the first time in almost a decade, I wasn't scared of the future. I was ready for it. Emily squeezed my hand tight and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Mom." Nathan leaned into me on the other side, and in that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice. We weren't broken anymore, we were whole, just the three of us. The divorce went through quickly after that. It was almost anticlimactic compared to the storm Robert had caused in our lives. But that official stamp, that final document, it meant freedom. It meant no more wondering if he'd show up again, no more letting him dangle hope in front of my kids like some cruel trick. Not long after, I decided we needed something special, something just for us. So I booked the trip I had promised them for years, Disneyland. The look on their faces when I told them. I'll never forget it. Emily actually cried happy tears, and Nathan jumped around the kitchen screaming like it was Christmas morning. That trip became a turning point. We laughed until our stomachs hurt, ate way too much cotton candy, and stood in line for rides for hours without caring, because we were together. Watching them smile, really smile, without any shadow of their father hanging over them, was the best gift I could have asked for. Since then, life hasn't been perfect, but it's been ours. I work hard, yes, but I come home to 2 kids who love me, who trust me, and who know I'll never abandon them. We talk about everything, the good, the bad, the messy. We've built a new life on honesty and love, not on empty promises and lies. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if Robert ever signed those papers, if he ever truly realized what he lost that day in the park. But honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. He's not part of our story now. We're writing our own, and it's stronger without him. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing, we'll face it together. Me, Emily, and Nathan. And after everything we've been through, I finally believe that's enough. Because we don't need him. We never did. And we never will again.